All right, everybody, I want to go through the GitHub project for CIS 152. Now, with this project, you're going to be doing a couple things. You're going to be watching a nice lesson about GitHub talking about what it is and how to utilize it. With that, you will understand the whole reason GitHub works is for collaboration and version control, meaning that you always be able to see changes that you made to your document at every stage of the process, so that you can go back to old versions if something goes wrong, or you can have someone else actually branch or fork off of that and add some changes and then bring them all together and unite them as a new updated project. But for our purposes, basically what you're going to be doing is creating a GitHub account. You're going to create a repository, and in that repository you're going to put in your projects for the class. So the last set of projects, I'm going to get a URL that actually goes to the GitHub server versus the Parkland server. So you're going to be creating a GitHub account. You're going to be working with it with it depends on how you like it. If you want to use the command line, that's fine. If you want to use the desktop application, that's fine. I use the desktop application, and for what I'm doing, it works just perfectly. I don't care which one you use necessarily, but I want you to get the basic idea of what GitHub is. In this class, we're not getting into like hardcore GitHub usage, but I do want you to understand what it is actually doing and what you can use it for later on, because you could use it for anything. If you want to get into games, if you want to get into any kind of project that you want to collaborate on, or just a place to put files that you can access later on. I'll put something up on GitHub and then I can have access to it like it's going to Dropbox, or if it's going to Google Docs or something like that. So you can use it in a lot of ways, and there's thousands of videos out there about how people are using it. Essentially what we're doing is you're going to watch the videos, you're going to create your own GitHub account, then you are going to make a repository on your own your local machine, and you'll have one on the cloud with the GitHub servers. Then you're going to create a GitHub page, which allows us to essentially create a repository with a specific name that allows you to actually use it like a URL. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to, you'll already have an account in GitHub made up, but you're going to create a new repository, and you're going to use your username with .github.io added to it. So for me it'd be ddallas.parkland.github.io. That little thing is really annoying. And so you're going to use that just like this person has right here. That's actually part of the URL, and it's going to be part of it. So the file repository name has to have the .github.io on it, and the username has to be your username. So those things have to line up. You're going to make it a public file, and I always initialize it with a README file, and then you create. Once you do that, then we'll be able to clone that repository on your local machine. You should have a directory where all of your repositories are going into, and then into that repository you can put your project folders, and whatever you put in there, we'll have access to it through a URL. So for instance, if I'm on my site, so here I am logged into GitHub on the website, and I have my first repository. Notice that it's not named ddallasparkland, so this would not work for a page, for a GitHub page. What I have to do is create a new one. So it's going to be ddallas. You'll put in your username, and then it's .github.io, and it has to be like this: your username, make sure it's spelled correctly, and then .github.io, and I'm going to say my CIS 152 files, and I'm going to put a README file in there, and I'll show you why in just a second, just to make sure that this whole thing works. I'm going to say create a repository. All I have right now then is essentially a new folder in my GitHub. Notice I have two repositories now. I have one that's called ddallasparkland.github.io and this other one. The other one was just to learn the basics. So I'm going to click into that. Over here, I can copy. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. This is the link. It's not quite exactly what you want, but it's going to be an easier way to enter the data. So essentially, my ddallasparkland repository has this README file in it. If I click on this README file, I can edit it, and I can read what's actually in it. So if I went to edit, I can go in here and I can edit this. So I'm going to actually add a line. My CIS 152 project files. And I have to go down to the bottom of the page here and commit my changes. So what I have in this overall account, I have a repository named ddallasparkland.github.io. In that is a README file right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my browser here, and I took this right here, this HTTPS, this web link. I'm going to say copy that. I'm going to go to my new tab, and I just want to show you what. Now there's a lot here that you don't need. You don't need this at the end right now, and you don't need all of this at the beginning, but you do need that. So basically, here's the beginning of the link that you're going to be using from now on. It's going to have this plus your username plus github.io, but then when we want to actually go into that, we need to put in the actual file. So there should be a README file in there, and if I pull that out, notice that I'm reading the data off of that file. So this is like opening up a web page, like a text or an HTML page right now. The only thing I have in there is this readme.md. So that's awesome. So if I go back here and I go to my readme.md and I make another change to it, it looks like I might be lagging a little bit. So I'll go ahead and say my second edition. And I'll make sure every time I do that I commit my changes. My changes have been added. Alright, so I have made these changes. I've got a unique long number that documents every single change that I have made. I can see this. Here's my link. But if it's refreshed, I'll go ahead and refresh it just to make sure. There might be a little bit of a lag. It might be instant, but there's my data. Alright, so that's the core idea. So this is directly on the GitHub server. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to my local machine. Remember this, but I'm going to go to my local machine now. And on my local machine, after you have watched the GitHub videos, you will have GitHub icons on your desktop, and you can say, I'm going to open it up. Okay. Now, I have in my settings, I have set up in options, I have a folder to where I am downloading any new repository that I might make, where I create them and where I clone them. And it's going into a documents folder called GitHub. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to get that information. It's up in the cloud, right? So I need to pull it down to my local machine. And so what I have to do is I have to go here, and I'm going to say clone. I have to choose my name here. Otherwise, it might be at other repositories or something like that. So this is my account. This is the one that I was just working with. Notice that it knows that that exists now, and it sees my other one. So notice if I go to the cloud, if I go back to the web, if I go here, I have my two repositories, this one and that one. Well, my GitHub knows that and knows they're right here, but they're not local yet. So if I go to my actual documents folder, I have a GitHub account, and in that, these are the only folders that I have. And so what I want to do is clone this other one. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to clone this. I'm going to say clone it. Oh, sorry, clone. And it's going to say where do you want it, but it's already going to be selected for that folder, that GitHub folder that I just showed you. And I'm going to say OK. And what that has done is that has added to my GitHub folder the ddallasparkland.github.io, and in that is my README folder. And so I can't read this with my Windows, but you can see that it exists. Well, that's awesome, because now I can put that data into this folder. So for instance, if I have a website, so let's say I have worked with something, I've created a site, and let's say, let me just check this real quick. All right, it's not very big. So I'm going to copy this. Let's say copy. I'm going to move this into my folder. So this is the repository I just made. I'm going to add something. So pretend that this is this is a project that you just made for a class or something that you want. Now notice inside that I have all kinds of different files, right? So I've made a change to that folder. If I go to my GitHub, notice that it says there's changes. Now this is all the stuff I have changed to that folder. I've added to that repository. So notice it's documented all of those things. Well, anytime I'm done with a change, I want to commit it. So I'm going to say added dd site folder. So this is my website test that I'm doing. So you're experimenting with something, and I'm going to say commit that. So I've just committed those changes. It might take a second. And what I want to do then is once I've done this, I can add, okay, now it's been committed. Now I can sync this to my cloud repository. So this is all done local here using my GitHub desktop. Now I'm going to take it to the cloud and I'm going to sync it. I'm going to pause while this happens. Okay, so once that syncs up, I'm finished. It's going to say it's been all done. So what I can do is I can then go to my GitHub site again. I'm going to click on my repository and notice that that site is now there. If I click on that, I have all of my information. So this is the part that's really important. Now we've got to make sure we have the right URL so that we can see this. So again, I'm going to go here to the HTTP. So here's this. This is my original. Now I'm not looking at this anymore. I'm looking at the folder name that I had just made. So I call that dd site. So that's the new directory. I'm going to make sure that's correct. I'm going to make sure. Yeah, dd site. So I'm going into this folder, into this, and then I'm going to go to my index1.html. 1.html. And here is my web page. So this is coming off of the GitHub site. I'm in my dd site directory, and I'm pulling up the index. And because all my files are relative, everything that I want is there. So this is exactly what you need to do for your project. You need to understand GitHub. You need to download it to your machine, the desktop. You need to create a repository for it with your username and the github.io extension. You'll have repositories on your machine and the cloud. You're going to add your project folders, not the old ones, but the new ones, Project 6 and so on, or whatever it happens to be. You're going to start with the Bootstrap Project 5. So you're going to take that whole folder and add it to your repository, and for each project after that. Then you're going to send me the URL that goes into the proper folder and allows me to see all of your pages. That's all there is to it. There's a lot to learn about kind of everything, and you can learn that as you go and as you need it. But the core elements is just that right there. So I hope that makes sense, and I look forward to seeing your work.